Hi there. Now we're going to do lesson 72. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Paragraph 1. While we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on his plan and a deliberate attempt to destroy it. In the attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego, while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God. What this means is that the ego has done an incredible job, and you can really see this through organized religion really, really well, where God has been made into a human, a man that sits on a cloud that is judgmental and that decides what happens to the humans. So in essence, what we do to each other, which is judge each other and decide who's right and who's wrong, and that, men are stronger, better, more powerful than women. So we have assigned as a humanity the human attributes on God, because the ego is the one that is trying to make God look like itself so that we don't get to experience what God really is. Because if we knew what God is, we would never, ever, ever side with our ego. So this is really important, that we really truly understand that the ego has projected something on God, that when we understand what God is based on the ego, we will begin to better understand what the ego is, because it is exactly what we have projected on God. Paragraph 2. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God, to make itself the authority. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish. So by becoming a human form, separate and apart from others, and beginning to decide life according to me, we are in essence wanting to replace God as the ultimate authority. For it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with a body, keeping it separate and alone and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison it. Now, let me just say this. What we are is energy. What we are is in the mind. Where we are is in the mind of God. We are pure consciousness. Excuse me. So in pure consciousness, in the pure non-physical energy that everything is, we exist without a solid body. When we take on what appears to be a physical body and we focus solely on that physical body, the ego basically has been formed to experience this idea that I'm separate, that you can't hear my thoughts, that what I'm thinking is inside of me. But as we have seen in previous lessons, that there is no way that we can have thoughts that are apart from one another. It is impossible, because we all basically think the same thing. We have access to the same knowingness. We all share one mind. We share the mind of God. But by having separate bodies and focusing on these separate bodies, the ego is trying to convince us that we are separate indeed and think separately, but what it's doing is it's imprisoning us in an idea of who we think we are that keeps us from receiving from others who have other perspectives that would allow us to expand our own ideas. We imprison ourselves in a thinking that is very limited. And when we band together with other people who have that same limited thinking, watch out, because that is the creation of organizations that then want to impose their thoughts on others. And it is detrimental to our being able to expand our awareness of all the possibilities that there are. But the understanding that our value of this body and thinking that we are separate makes us believe that we are apart from others is the very idea that makes us feel imprisoned. Like I'm here all alone by myself. Nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. Let me continue. In paragraph 2, sentence number 4, the limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication. If nobody knows what I'm thinking and I'm holding secrets, we cannot really expand our ability to communicate and see our oneness. Yet the ego would have you believe that it is. Because when I hold my secrets, the ego really is thinking that now I am somehow can manipulate you with my mind because I'm making you do things that with the way that the ego behaves. If I act like a bully, if I act like a victim, if I am passive aggressive, it doesn't matter what I do. In my mind, I think I'm manipulating you and getting you to do what I want to do. But in essence, what is happening is we're imprisoned in a very small way of thinking that does not allow for more to come in. Paragraph 3. Although the attempt to keep the limitations that a body would impose is obvious here, it is perhaps not so apparent why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. But let us consider the kinds of things that you are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something a body does? A person says something you don't like. He does something that displeases you. He betrays his hostile thoughts in his behavior. So when we believe that I can hold ideas about you, I can attack you in my own mind, or even if I attack you directly, I am attacking another body. I am seeing something separate from me that can affect me. I'm seeing me as something separate that can affect you. When we are protecting ourselves, looking at body to body, we are not opening up to the non-physicalness, the what else is there that is possible that comes through intuition, that if we took the time to ask each other, really, what do you feel? We would all realize that we feel the same thing. Everybody ultimately wants the same thing, but believing that we're separate, we actually think that we want different things. But it is through the process of conversation that we begin to realize that we're all the same. But the ego doesn't want to see sameness because it's focusing on the body. It makes us see other people, and we size them up by their color, their height, their size, their accent. We decide who they are by taking a visual of them, run it through our past beliefs, and then make a determination about who they are. We never get to know that person because we see the body and judge it. Paragraph 4. You are not dealing here with what the person is. On the contrary, you are exclusively concerned with what he does in a body. You are doing more than failing to help in freeing him from the body's freeing him from the body's limitations. So you are doing more than failing to help in freeing him from the body's limitations. You meet somebody. What do? Oh, I'm a doctor. Immediately you think, oh, you got money, you're very smart, you're successful, you're blah, 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 blah. We don't take the time to find out. Are you hurting? Are you sad? Are you doing this because you're trying to prove something to your father? Are you trying to get your mother's love? We don't really know what's happening to that soul inside because we're present to just what the body is and what the body does. That's what the ego wants us to focus on. Sentence number 4 in paragraph 4. You are actively trying to hold him to it by confusing it with him, trying to hold him to his body by confusing him with his body and judging them as one. Here is God attacked, for if his son is only a body, so must he be as well. He with a capital H. So if we see the Son of God as a body, we're thinking God is a body too. And we're thinking God is a body somewhere on a cloud. Even though we know bodies can't sit on clouds because they're going to fall down, we have literally made of God a human image. And we don't understand that God is non-physical. And if God is non-physical and God is eternal, God is in everything that there is, which means that all that you are is the presence of God. So we miss in understanding that every single soul is God expressed uniquely through each one of us when we lock people down into believing that they are just their body, and then we size up the body by what the body does. Oh, you're just a mom. Oh, you're just a dig ditcher. Oh, you're a CEO. So we totally miss the essence of God in that being because we're focusing on what that body represents. So let's go to sentence number 6 in paragraph 4. A creator wholly unlike his creation is inconceivable. Think about this way. Puppies Or dogs create puppies. Cats create kittens. Dolphins give birth to dolphins. Humans give birth to humans. When we believe that God is a human, then we assign God the creation of us as humans. We're always going to be focused on bodies. But when we understand that God is love, and we then accept that just as puppies or dogs give birth to puppies, if we accept that love gave birth to love, then we would understand ourselves a lot better. Because if we understood that God is just pure energy, and it is the energy of love, it is actually the source of the energy of love, we would understand ourselves as being sources of energy of love. And then our work would be to extend that energy of love and not to contract ourselves inside of the idea that I am just a body. Our bodies are designed to be expressions of love in human form. We are supposed to be extending love, being loving. But we get stuck. That love gets stuck when we condense ourselves inside of the idea that I'm just this human body. And then I look at your human body and I use my beliefs from the past to decide who you are based on your appearances, decide who I am based on my appearances. And we miss the whole point. Love then is not free to be itself. Paragraph 5. If God is a body, what must his plan for salvation be? What could it be but death? If we all know that bodies eventually die, we have said that God is a human that has created us to die, sentenced us to die. Look at the insanity of this. In trying to present himself as the author of life and not death, he is a liar and a deceiver, full of false promises and offering illusions in place of truth. So when we focus on God as being the God of death, because that's where we're all going to end up, we miss out that God is the God of life. And life is what it wants us to extend. And our lives would be so much healthier, longer, more vibrant if we knew that what we are is love expressing itself, instead of believing that we're bodies that are destined for death. Our bodies are not destined to death. Our bodies, like our clothes, are a temporary vehicle that we're using, a temporary thing that we are wearing to express what God is in form. So in essence, when we are focusing on the body, we cannot know what we truly are. And then we assign those attributes to God, making God this mean being that created us just to die, suffer, and die, never understanding that no, God created us to be joyful and happy and vibrant. But when we're not understanding that part of us, we're not behaving from that aspect. So holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. And as long as I'm upset with God for giving me this body and destining me to death, I don't understand that grievance doesn't let me save myself from the insanity of the ego. So the ego has bamboozled us into believing that we are what we're actually not. Paragraph 5, sentence number 4. The body's apparent reality makes this view of God quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion. And every grievance that you hold insists that the body is real. It overlooks entirely what your brother is. You can't see that everybody else is a soul, is energy, non-physical energy. It reinforces your belief that he is a body and condemns him to it. And it asserts that his salvation must be death, projecting this attack onto God and holding him responsible for it. So we have all been taught that by people who were unconscious, did not understand what God is, that we are destined to die, that we're sinners, that we're dirty, that there's a problem with us, that we're destined to die. And the way we die, that's the only time that we become free. That is backwards thinking that the ego has made up to make us become fearful people. Our work is to free ourselves by understanding that we are the energy of love. We are the energy of the Creator, and our energy is meant to be in motion. It is meant to be extending love everywhere. So when we put people in boxes, in bodies, and determine who they are, It is because we are holding a grievance against God because we do not understand what God is. We have to retrain our mind to think correctly, to know what God really is, so that we can stop blaming God for our issues. We can start taking responsibility for who we are, and then begin to see everybody as exactly who they are. Expressions of God, expressions of love, expressions of non-physical energy appearing in a body for a temporary experience. That's it. That's why we reincarnate. These are temporary experiences. Do you know how much more fun, how much more joy we would have if we enjoyed these bodies while we have them? And I enjoy being a mom now, and I enjoyed having been a daughter, and I enjoy the process of having been a granddaughter, because as I enjoy my physical experience, I know when I understand God, I'm going to come back as another granddaughter. I'm going to be my own granddaughter at some point. My life will complete and I'll be born again into this, my children's children. If I knew that, then I really truly would enjoy this experience. I would be not worried about death, but actually living it fully, knowing that there is an expiration date, and I would enjoy the heck out of this life experience. Paragraph 6. To this carefully prepared arena, where angry animals seek for prey and mercy cannot enter, the ego comes to save you. So our ego wants us to believe, I'm going to do life better than God gave it to me. So it goes on to become an angry animal, seeking prey, constantly trying to get the most that I can get. Because I don't understand my eternal nature, I operate from a place of lack. I operate from a place of having a hole in me because I don't know my holiness. And I spend my life looking for things from somewhere. And what that does is it does not allow me to be merciful. It does not allow grace to come in. It does not allow me to see my connection to all that is. Now, granted, we're waking up and experiencing that. The children that are being born now since the 1980s, those kids are coming in with a connection to all that is, with a connection to the planet, with a connection to one another, that they're saying, wait, this is totally messed up. We are one. But those of us in the older generations born before that are still living inside of our bodies, make us separate, and we are only protecting ourselves. Why? Because we are angry animals seeking prey. That's a beautiful, perfect example of an ego mind that operates from pure greed. Sentence number 2 in paragraph 6. God made you a body. God made you a body. Very well. Let us accept this and be glad. As a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. Take the little that you can get. God gave you nothing. The body is your only savior. It is the death of God in your salvation. When you believe that all you are is a body, it is the death of God in your salvation, and then you're only focused on who you are and what you have. All right, paragraph 7. This is the universal belief, the world that you see, because this is what we all believe, protecting our bodies. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate it. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt it. But while the body stands at the center of your concept of yourself, you are attacking God's plan for salvation and holding your grievances against Him and His creation, that you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome it as a friend. We can heal our bodies if we connect to God. We can be happy if we align with God's will. We can be at peace if we listen to what God has to say about peace, about our wholeness. We cannot hear that because our mind is so filled with voices, all in protection of the body or in condemnation of it. When you are operating from the ego, when we are operating from the ego, because I know I've done this, the only concern for the ego is survival of the body. That is its primary concern, separation and survival of me. There is no room for grace. There's no room for mercy in that. And when we get really, really, really honest that we have valued the body over the non-physical energy that we are, we will begin to understand why we have all been trapped in this illusion. And it is what the world teaches, because it's what the world of form, the three-dimensional world, believes is the truth. Paragraph 7, sentence 5. Your chosen Savior takes his place instead. So we have decided that we are the ones who can save ourselves, in essence, becoming our own authority and leaving God out, and internally keeping a secret hate against God, a secret anger against God. It is your friend, he is your enemy. So now we make the body our friend and we make God our enemy. No wonder we're at odds with God. Paragraph 8. We will try today to stop these senseless attacks on salvation. We will try to welcome it instead. Your upside down perception has been ruinous to your peace of mind. You have seen yourself in a body and the truth outside you, locked away from your awareness by the body's limitations, because we really truly think, I don't know the truth because it's in a book somewhere, locked up in a vault somewhere. I can't have abundance because abundance is locked up in a bank somewhere. I can't have peace because that body over there broke up with me. I can't have love because that body over there won't come and give it to me. So we literally are locked up inside of a very small sense of self. And what is going to happen when we awaken is we begin to realize God has been inside us all along. That voice that could have guided us through the knowingness, the awareness of our peace, of our wholeness, of our happiness being inside of us, of our abundance being by virtue of who we are, our holy self. To have access to that voice, we have to say no to the ego. We have to stop listening to the ego and begin to listen to the voice for God. How do you begin to listen to the voice for God? We've got to look at the fears that block us from that experience. Sentence number 5 in paragraph 8. Now we are going to try to see this differently. Paragraph 9. The light of truth is in us, where it was placed by God. It is the body that is outside us and is not our concern. To be without a body is not to be, let me read this again. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. To be without a body, to be non-physical. When people die in their non-physical state, they are literally free. They are actually being what they are. But to be in a body is not our natural state. It is our state of expressing what God is. When we know that we are free to use the body for that, when we believe that we're just the body, we have locked ourselves in a prison because it's a very small idea of who we are. It limits us to just being this. We no longer can be our eternal self that can communicate with people across the world, across universes. We cannot have open dialogue with the entire universe, with trees, with mountains, with planets. We cannot have communication with all the beings that exist in all of the universe of universes, definitely not with God directly, if we think we're just this body and are limited to what is in my head. We need to understand that we need to quiet the mind and enter the heart so that we can begin to see that we're one with all that is, communicate with all that is, receive intuition, and move us into the place of knowing our oneness. Paragraph 9, sentence 4. To recognize the light of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see ourself, capital S self, our soul, as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's plan for salvation and to accept it instead. When you accept that you're a non-physical body, when you truly begin to accept that what you are is eternal, you will no longer be locked up inside of a body. When you know your eternalness, you now are open to be part of God's plan for salvation, because then you will know you are one with all that is. You will not be able to judge other people. You will not size them up because of their bodies. You will literally know your brotherhood, your sisterhood. We will know each other as one because we will understand that we're all the same energy, expressing ourselves as individual bodies, but not limited by them. Beautiful. Sentence number 6, and wherever his plan is accepted, it is accomplished already. Because the minute that I accept my oneness, oneness is done. That's it. No more fearing others who appear to be in separate bodies, because I will know that we are all one. Paragraph 10, our goal in the longer practice periods today is to become aware that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. The minute that we stop believing that we're just bodies, we will experience our oneness, and God's plan will already be accomplished. Why? Because we will love one another. To achieve this goal, we must replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand what God's plan is for us. Or what it actually says, as long as we attack it, we cannot understand what God's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. Now we're going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what God's plan for us is. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Tell me that I may understand. What is it that I truly am? This eternal energy that I am. Tell me more about that. I want to feel it. I want to experience it because that's what you created, and I don't want to live inside of this idea that I'm a separate body, susceptible to the attacks of others and attacking others to protect myself. Sentence number 9. Then we will wait in quiet for his answer. We have attacked God's plan for salvation without waiting to hear what it is. I never knew God's plan for salvation was eternal love and peace and joy. I had no idea that's what it was because my mind had been conditioned to believe that God was only going to punish me. No wonder I was trying to protect myself and attacking others to prove that I knew better, to prove my righteousness, to make myself feel like I could save myself. All the while leaving out the Savior. The true Savior of all that is came with my recognition of our oneness. We have shouted our grievances so loudly that we have not listened to his voice. Powerful statement. In our mind, we are constantly yelling and shouting and talking about what's wrong with the world, and many of us verbalize that as well. While we are doing that, we cannot listen to God's voice. We have used our grievances to close our eyes and stop our ears. Paragraph 11. Now we would see and hear and learn. Those who have ears, let them hear. Those who have eyes, let them see. What is salvation, Father? Ask and you will be answered. Seek and you will find. We are no longer asking the ego what salvation is and where to find it. We are asking it of truth. We are not going to the ego anymore. We're going straight to the Father. Be certain then that the answer will be true because of whom you ask. Because when we begin that dialogue with the Father and we feel that peace within us, we know we're hearing God's voice when we feel peace. Now, granted, the ego is going to start talking and telling you that is not so immediately. So you become anxious and you become confused. That's part of the process. But when you begin to receive that answer that gives you peace, in that moment of peace, rest in that and say, the Father just spoke to me. And then the anxiety, but is it true? Is it possible? Can I do this? Can they do that? Then the anxiety comes in. Begin to discern the peace from the noise, and little by little, the peace will begin to be felt longer when you begin to tell the noise, stop it. I don't want to hear that voice. I want to stay inside of what feels peaceful. Paragraph 12. Whenever you feel your confidence wane and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite creator of infinity who created you like himself. God is love, created you as love. Love, when it is in oneness, when it is undivided, feels like peace, feels like joy, because there's nothing to push against, there's nothing to see as separate. So when you receive an answer, by virtue of the fact that you are created by God in God's image, like dolphins give birth to dolphins, love gave birth to love. We are love as God is love and created us. So let me read this again. I love this sentence number in paragraph 14. Whenever you feel your confidence wane and your hope of success flicker and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite creator of infinity who created you like himself. You're asking the God of love who created you as love. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. He will answer. Be determined to hear. Be ready to listen, because in stillness God speaks. And it is felt. It is always a felt answer. Paragraph 13. 1 or perhaps 2 shorter practice periods an hour will be enough for today, since they will be somewhat longer than usual. These exercises should begin with this. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. Let me accept it instead. What is salvation, Father? Tell me what salvation is, because I want to accept your plan. Sentence 6. Then wait a minute or so in silence, preferably with your eyes closed, and listen for his answer. Because God is going to answer you. Why? Because God is in you, and it is waiting for you to accept it. So when you decide to stop seeing yourself as separate and as a body, you will, knowing what you are as love, begin to extend it. And in order to give it to your neighbor, you must first give it to yourself. How do you give it to yourself? By knowing what God is and knowing where God is. If God is love and you're made of love, you are love. We have to fall in love with the fact that we are loving beings. Then it stretches out to all of our neighbors, to the whole planet, to the whole universe. Enjoy this lesson. And remember, we truly are magnificent, because that is how God created us. Love you. Bye-bye.